Hello and welcome to this 25th Sunday in Ordinary Time. I'm Father Loman. I'll be presiding and preaching this coming weekend. What I want to do is something new on this homily on the go. I want to read the text that we are preaching from so that you have it, just in case you don't have a Sunday Missal and you want to hear it, okay? It's from the 9th chapter of Mark. Jesus and his disciples left from there and began a journey through Galilee, but he did not wish anyone to know about it. He was teaching his disciples and telling them the Son of Man is to be handed over to men and they will kill him. And 3 days after his death, the Son of Man will rise. But they did not understand the saying and they were afraid to question him. They came to Capernaum, and once inside the house, he began to ask them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they remained silent. They had been discussing among themselves on the way who was the greatest. Then he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "If anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all and the servant of all." Taking a child, he placed it in their midst, and putting his arms around it, he said to them, "Whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Now we go into the process of developing a homily. The first thing that comes to mind as I'm reading this text is probably something that has absolutely nothing to do with the gospel. I remember many, many years ago, while I was still in the old country, my sister was pregnant. And she was going through the process of birthing. And we had several, what they called false alarms, where the baby is coming, and we would rush to the clinic or would call the midwives into the house to get ready for the birthing process. But one incident is etched into my memory. When my sister, this is back in the old country, where everything is done au natural, and my sister was in excruciating pain during this birthing process. And my mother is sitting there, and she takes a small little, what we call face towel or face rag, and she wets it in some cold water, and she puts it on my sister's forehead. And, just talking my sister through the birthing process. Many years later, I've wondered about that incident. I'm like, did my sister, who was going through the birthing process, really care about the color of the face rag? Or did that face rag in any way take away any pain that my sister was going through? Most of us would say, probably it was a sheer waste of time. It was excruciating pain, and we could hear it from the other rooms. We were not allowed to go where that was happening, but we could just hear it was something that you never, ever forget. The whole birthing process, actually, they say everything is connected, reminds me or can touch on today's gospel passage in this manner. We have several people who surround the young woman who is birthing. Imagine, as you are surrounding this young lady who is in great pain, somebody starts talking about, "Oh, you should have seen you should have been there when I was giving birth, birth to my twins. Oh, it was Who cares about you right now? Nobody. Everybody cares about this one person who is going through this process." In my language, actually in the language in the northern part of Zambia, the greeting after the birthing process is "Mwapusukeni," which translated in English just means "how have you survived?" But "how have you survived" doesn't bring with itself the full meaning of Mwapusukeni. It means think, plane crash, surviving a plane crash. That is the sentiment that is brought when we greet somebody who was birthed. That process, though, everybody is engaged. Most of the people who are surrounding the young woman have been through this arduous process. They know. And whether the piece of cloth helps or it doesn't help, what matters in that moment is we are here. And together, we are going to help you go through this. But we can't do this for you. You have to do it yourself. And that young woman has to come to terms with that. It sounds hypocritical for me, a man, to be preaching about that, right? But it is so loaded with meaning. What I find fascinating as I go through the gospel, the homily preparation is, so last week, Jesus is in Caesarea Philippi. And in Caesarea Philippi, we're just approaching chapter 8 of Mark's gospel. He tells his disciples, the Son of Man will suffer many things and will be handed over and will be crucified. That is the first prediction of the passion. Immediately, Peter rebukes him. Don't you dare speak like that. Don't do it. We didn't leave our houses so that you can throw it all away. Peter has the right answer. Jesus is the Messiah. But Peter has, as we talked about last week, has a different understanding of what Messiah means. And Peter is not paying attention to what Jesus is saying. He doesn't want to hear it. We talked about last week, one of the regrets of the dying is, I wish I lived a life true to myself, not a life others wished for me. So here is Jesus saying, I have to live a life true to myself, and the life true to myself will involve suffering. Peter says no. That is take one. Take two is today's gospel passage. As they are walking along, Jesus begins again to teach his disciples, to tell them about what is going to happen as they're heading down to Jerusalem. They act like they are listening. At the moment that he stops talking about this passion or moves on, they start arguing. Now, how do Middle or Mediterranean people argue? I don't think the arguing is the cute kind of arguing. I think they argue more like Nigerians. Even when they're having a conversation, you think they're about to go into a fist fight. What are they arguing about? They're arguing about who amongst them is the greatest. Now, imagine this. Jesus tells them about the passion. They argue about who is the greatest. What is your question? Your question, like me, is, did anybody hear what he was saying? Did anybody pay attention to what Jesus was? Is anybody engaged in the pain that Jesus is going through at this moment? Here he is talking about one thing, and they come up with something completely unrelated. They fight about staters. And I just poured out my life to you. I told you how I'm struggling with this. And your response is this? Have you ever been in a conversation with somebody like that who you are pouring out your heart to them, and they come up with the most unrelated topic, and you are thinking, she didn't hear me. He didn't hear me. So, what is lesson number 1 in today's gospel passage? It is this for me. Am I the kind of Christian who is engaged with others? Or, to put it more simply, how are your listening skills? I think we suffer from a crisis of listening. We are too busy thinking about how to respond, thinking about what to say, or sometimes we have a friend who is, God bless her, she's a one-upper. Whatever you're saying, I don't even know if this person hears you, they come up with something else. So I'm invited, and all of us, and I say about our friend, all of us, this is when we preach first to ourselves, right? I need to do a better job of listening. And what do I listen for? They say, those who study these things, that the words that we use are only 10% of the message. The bulk of the message is carried by our bodies, our body language, and where we are. So I wonder, how is the demeanor of Jesus? Is anybody going to say, "Are you okay, brother? You've been a little bit off. What's going on?" Is anybody going to ask that? Can anybody read his body language? That's my question. Because when Jesus begins to teach his disciples about, "I'm going to go down to Jerusalem and suffer," it's not a lecture, okay? Have you ever poured your heart out to somebody? Like, it's not just like, "Oh, I'm going through cancer." No. Your body is saying it way before the words come out. And a good listener will listen to everything. They told us, I know it's all over the place, when I was in seminary actually, that in the first minute, you might lose your congregation when you begin to preach, when your words are saying one thing and your body is saying something else. They told us about saying and celebrating Mass, that people will tune out when your body language says something else and your words are just repeating the rubrics or the words on the sacramentary. That means we speak with our bodies. We need a ministry of listening. We need to train ourselves to inquire or to dig deeper or to listen to the words, just as when during the birthing process, right, back in the old country, nobody is up there while this person is birthing saying, "Hey, would you like my Instagram post?" If somebody ever said that, you would be like, "Gaga." No, everybody is engaged. Everybody is listening to the screams and the body, and everybody is there. That towel that my mother put on my sister didn't take away any pain. But what did it say? "Honey, I'm here. Honey, I see you. I almost feel your pain. I'm here." I think when we read the scriptures, we find a Jesus who is, in my opinion, very, very lonely. And he is lonely not because he's left alone in the Garden of Gethsemane. He's lonely in thought as well. Why? Because the disciples expected more from him, right? They thought the Messiah was going to go to Jerusalem and overthrow the Romans and banish the pagans from their land. That's what they thought. They thought the Messiah was going to live 1,000 years. And here he is saying, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And he's not just saying it's not going to happen, he's really as well going through a crisis. If you follow the journey of Jesus of Nazareth, again, I talked about this last week, his prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane is, Father, take this cup of suffering away. It's not just, I would rather not go through this, but I embrace it. Jesus accepts as well. So the disciples have a problem with the suffering Messiah. And from chapter 8 to chapter 12, we're going to be talking about this suffering Messiah. And what we want to drive, and I think what Jesus wants to drive into us is for us to look at suffering in a very, very different way. For the disciples, it was failure. They could not accept this. Jesus says there could be something redemptive about suffering. I'll go through this, and it will not be pretty, but it's not the end. And when you and I live a Christian life, a religious life, which thinks there is no pain, should be no pain, and we don't know how to read or listen or speak the language of pain and suffering, then Karl Marx is is proved correct when he says, no, religion is the opium of the people. Because most people think religion is, you are in la la land. No, religion and spirituality prepares us to face the difficult moments in life. And Jesus right now is going through this very, very difficult moment. So the disciples, there is a complete missing of the minds here between the disciples and Jesus. He's talking about suffering, and they're talking about who is the greatest. This is take 2. In the 29th Sunday in Ordinary Time, we are going to hear something again. Take 3. Jesus again will talk about his coming death. Again, the disciples will not understand. In fact, James and John will come and say, hey, can we be vice president and senator or whatever, number 2 or 3 when you get to Jerusalem? He just told you this is not going to happen. And take 3, they come back, they want to be number 2 and number 3. In fact, in another gospel passage, it's their mother who goes and asks Jesus, hey, can my boys be on your right-hand side and on your left-hand side? So what is brewing in my mind is, number 1, what is this calling me to? I think it's calling me to listen. Number 2, it is calling me to see the redemptive part of suffering, the way that Jesus did, that there is redemption there. Many years ago, and I know it's how many on the go, I'm capping it with this. Many years ago, I was working with somebody who was dying of cancer. And I have never prayed this hard. I went for a run. Her name is Nancy Nassif. And I prayed to God, Lord, take her today. She is suffering way too much. I could not bear it. You wouldn't know, though, when you visited Nancy, that she was going through pain. She found herself at a place of peace, and I think it was redemptive. It is redemptive to me now to see how she suffered. So I pray during this Eucharist today for everybody who is going through a rough time. I know you just don't go through a rough time. Everything about you suffers. And sometimes we just hope, I wish people could see. Again, I'll cap it with this. I have a friend who is Nigerian. I love my Nigerian friends. And his favorite expression is, listen to me. He says it like he's fighting. Listen to me. And today I want to say, thank you. Thank you for saying, listen to me. Thank you for asking me to be engaged in what you are going through, so that I am there, so that there is a meeting of the minds. Welcome to this 25th Sunday in Ordinary Time. God bless.